In Bolivia, President Luis Arce calls for a national meeting of institutions and social sectors in search for an agreement to define the date of the population and housing census. In Brazil, latest polls show candidate Lula da Silva remains favored with 53% in voting intentions for the presidential runoff election. And in South Africa, the first formal peace talks between the warring sides in the two-year conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region opens. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The president of Bolivia, Luis Arce, warned about the risk to democracy after the blockades maintained by opposition sectors in the department of Santa Cruz. The head of state proposed a plurinational meeting to evaluate the national census. During an activity with governors, mayors, and rectors of public universities, the president reaffirmed the democratic vocation to seek solutions to the country's different social problems. Luis Arce pointed out that in view of the strike situation in the department of Santa Cruz, he will seek to respond to their demands regarding the national census planned for 2024. According to the Vice Minister of Communication, Gabriela Alcon, the objective of this proposal is to guarantee a census of quality with technical rigor and that allows the whole population to be taken into account. The Bolivian president stated that the next objective is to reposition the Department of La Paz as the country's leading economic force.
Today we have the great challenge to restore the Department of La Paz as the first economic force of our country, and that is what we're working on. And we're working on that. There is a strategy of the North March in the Department of La Paz, the industrialization in the department. In short, everything that was designed and that is being put into practice for the benefit of the department.
Meanwhile, the Department of Santa Cruz reached its fourth day of strike activities, whose opposition civic leaders maintain actions of blocking streets and avenues to demand the implementation of the national census. During the day, residents warned that the stoppage of activities began to affect the development of essential activities such as transportation to hospital and food distribution. Also, several merchants reported that their profits began to diminish and caused losses of products. The Colombian Senate has approved the Total Peace Bill promoted by President Gustavo Petro, which lays the foundation for establishing the process of dialogue and negotiation with illegal armed groups. The law has 62 votes in favor and is close to being definitely approved so that total peace becomes a state policy. Therefore, future administrations will not be able to change any signed agreement. The bill foresees the possibility of establishing partial humanitarian agreements, the creation of a peace cabinet, and it mandates peace policies to be included in national and local development plans. One of the issues that sparked the most debates was the elimination of the social service for peace proposed by the government as an alternative and the eventual elimination of mandatory military service, as well as the articles referring to the pardon of the young people detained during the social unrest of 2021. At least one prisoner died and two others were injured in new clashes at a prison in Guayaquil, Ecuador. The National Service for the Comprehensive Care of Adults Deprived of Their Liberty and Adolescents Offenders reported they gained back control of the prison while work continued to determine the causes of the recent violence. Prison authorities also stated they were assisting the families of those deprived of liberty following the violent clashes inside the facility. Meanwhile, social organizations and activists condemned the incident and blamed the state for its inaction to address the crisis in the country's prison system. Now let's see a review of the prison massacres reported between 2021 and 2022 in Ecuador. In the last 2 years, 403 people were killed in different prisons around the country. In 2021, nearly 300 deaths occurred in prisons like Azuay, Cotopaxi, Guayas, among others. So far in 2022, more than 100 inmates have been murdered after the violent events registered in Turi, Santo Domingo, Cotopaxi, and Guayas prisons. In Brazil, recent polls placed presidential candidate Lula da Silva as the favorite for the second round of the elections with more than 50% of the vote intention. A recent poll published by IPESP on Tuesday, October 25th, shows that former president and candidate for the presidency of the country, Lula da Silva, remains firmly in the lead and would win the second round of the presidential elections with 53% of the valid votes against 47% of Jair Bolsonaro. In total votes, both Lula and Bolsonaro have fluctuated 1 point more since the last survey. The Workers' Party went from 49% to 50%, and the current president from 43% to 44%. And 5 days left for the presidential runoff election, Bolsonaro supporters continue to use violence as a political strategy. On Monday, progressive organizations in Brazil denounced aggression against Senator Simon Tebet in the framework of an act that took place in the city of Niterói in the metropolitan region of Rio de Janeiro. The delegation that included Senator Tebet, accompanied by the mayor of the city, Axel Grael, was attacked with eggs and other objects. From the beginning of the activities, several followers of the candidate for re-election, Jair Bolsonaro, insulted all the attendants. National and international civil rights organizations expressed their concern about the escalation of political violence in the last few days. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can now follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Newly appointed British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on Tuesday vowed to fix the errors made by his predecessor Liz Truss and warned of difficult decisions ahead.
To improve growth in this country. It is a noble aim. And I admired her restlessness to create change. But some mistakes were made. I will place economic stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda. This will mean difficult decisions to come.
Londoners give their views on the new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, saying that he has a very difficult job overcoming the economic crisis in the country.
He's going to have a very busy inbox, there's lots of things to sort out, the economy being the main thing. I think he's got a very difficult job. He's got 2 years to turn it round. I don't think he can do it. I think he made a bit of a mess of the economy. He's going to argue differently, but I think having a financial background, no, I don't have any impact at all.
Yes, I think as Chancellor during the pandemic, he worked with Boris Johnson very well indeed as Chancellor, and now he gets to be Prime Minister, which is the next step up, and we're pretty confident that he's going to be pretty successful.
The cost of living, the petrol prices, everything else that goes with it, it's just the whole country is a shambles at the moment. He's got to make a difference, and if he doesn't, there's going to be riots.
I think he'll have to be strong.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, a delegation from Finland arrived in Ankara to discuss issues related to Turkey's demands for the ratification of the Nordic countries' accession to NATO. During the talks, the Turkish side is expected to raise issues related to the request for the extradition of persons associated with terrorist activities. Ankara also demands from Helsinki and Stockholm that both sides change their political stance and remove restrictions on arms sales imposed on Turkey since 2019. At the moment, the accession of Finland and Sweden to the military bloc has been ratified by 28 member countries out of 30, with only Turkey and Hungary rejecting it. On May 18th, Finland and Sweden submitted applications to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but Ankara blocked the initiative. The governments of Russia and Turkey reached an agreement to establish a gas distribution center in Ankara. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov assured that Russia sees no reason to worry that Turkey could abuse its dominant position in the gas market. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that his country could redirect the volume of gas that it cannot supply through the Nord Stream pipelines to the Black Sea region, creating a gas distribution center for Europe in Ankara. The president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, said that his country would take the necessary measures to ensure the safety of the project. On Tuesday, a car bomb exploded close to a television station in Melitopol in newly annexed Zaporizhia region of Russia, leaving 5 people injured. Alexander Malkevich, a member of the Russian Civic Chamber, explained that the events occurred on Tuesday morning. The explosion was heard just as the employees of the Zaporizhia regional television station were entering the building. The injured are workers and civilians who were passing by the area at that time. No military personnel were injured. The explosion also caused serious damage to the building, equipment and other assets of the TV station. Venezuelan government officials have been deployed to several areas of the country to assess the damages caused by the rains brought on by the 46th tropical wave this season. Emergency institutions report that on Monday afternoon, the states of Carabobo, Aragua, Miranda, and the Capital District were hit by heavy rains, thunderstorms, and wind gusts. Authorities say the nation remains on high alert in view of the continued heavy rains and that the police and fire departments are on the alert in case of any emergency situation. Meanwhile, Civil Protection has confirmed that 62 houses were damaged in the city of Caracas, while preventive actions allowed the evacuation of more than 50 vulnerable families. Cyclone Citran struck Bangladesh Monday night, killing at least 22 people and leaving thousands stranded. The State Ministry for Disaster Management and Relief reports that 19 coastal districts have been affected. Nearly 10 million people were taken to safer locations, and close to 8 million people have no electricity as a result of the storm. Local authorities report that a sand mining dredger sank in the Sandwich Channel in the port city of Chittagong's Misharai coast, killing 8 laborers. People complain that the heavy rains of the last 2 days, combined with an inadequate drainage system, have left tens of thousands of people cut off, unable to either cook or sleep at their flooded homes. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. On Tuesday, the first formal peace talks between the warring sides in the brutal 2-year conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region opened in South Africa. Led by the African Union, the negotiations in Pretoria follow a fierce surge in fighting in recent weeks that has alarmed the international community and triggered fears for civilians caught in the crossfire. South African President spokesman Vincent Magwenya said the aim is to find a peaceful and sustainable solution to the devastating conflict, adding that they would run until October 30th. The dialogue between negotiators from the Ethiopian government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the regional authorities in war-stricken Tigray was launched almost 2 months to the day since fighting resumed, shattering a 5-month truce. UN High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi implored the rivals to seize the opportunity for peace in the face of the very worrying humanitarian situation.
Through a lot of negotiation with both sides, we had expanded access. But the moment the hostilities resumed, that access has dramatically reduced. And not only that, but you have a lot more displacement. This is so the two things go in opposite direction: less access and more needs. So we're very worried. We're looking very eagerly at Pretoria. I think it's in Pretoria, in South Africa, to the talks. That's the only way forward. If the parties do not really engage meaningfully in a solution, in a negotiated solution, we'll be in this situation forever.
Palestinian authorities declared a day of mourning on Tuesday following the brutal Israeli attacks that took the lives of 6 Palestinian civilians. Palestinians also declared a comprehensive strike throughout the Gaza Strip in solidarity with the city of Nablus. According to the presidential spokesperson Nabil Abu Rudeina, 6 Palestinians were killed and at least 30 wounded in sweeping Israeli raids in Palestine in what the army described as an assault targeting the emerging armed group known as Lion's Den. The United Nations recently stated that more than 100 Palestinian fighters and civilians have been killed since the start of the year, the heaviest toll in Palestine for nearly 7 years.
Today, I woke up and went to work. Then, I heard that 5 heroes were martyred in Nablus. I could not bear to hear about what is happening in Nablus. Why is all of this happening? What does Israel want? Israel is killing us every day, so I immediately closed my shop.
China's Bureau of Statistics reported that the rise in investment, consumption and export for national economic growth contributed with other factors to the country's steady economic recovery in the first 3 quarters of this year. According to the statistics body, from January to September 2022, final consumption expenditure contributed 41.3% to the economic growth, while the nation's gross fixed capital formation, which measures investment, accounted for 26.7%. Supported by a series of preferential policies, foreign trade remained resilient in the first 3 quarters, with the net exports of goods and services contributing 32% to the economic growth. Lastly, China also launched target public employment services this year, arranging vocational skills training for the youth, as well as broadening employment and entrepreneurs-help channels for rural workers. At a press conference in Beijing, Zhang Jiwei, spokesman of the Legislative Affairs Commission of the National People's Congress of the People's Republic of China, said they will strengthen legislation in key, emerging and foreign-related areas.
We will strengthen legislation in key, emerging and foreign-related areas. In drafting legislative plans and formulating or amending laws, we should base the work on the legislative requirements set forth at the 20th CPC National Congress, making an in-depth analysis of the legislative needs for building Chinese modern nation, integrate legislative decisions with the reforms decisions, and promptly respond to the demands and the course of development of the party and the country and to the concerns and expectations of the people.
China responded to accusations by top United States officials that the Chinese government is undertaking an unrelenting campaign by intelligence operatives to subvert the U.S. justice system and steal commercial secrets.
I'm not aware of the specific circumstances of the relevant cases. I would like to emphasize that China has always asked its citizens to obey the laws and regulations of the countries they are in. Some people in U.S. law enforcement have a Cold War zero-sum mentality and ideological bias, and have repeatedly fabricated all sorts of excuses and lies to smear China, and irrationally suppress China's business. They have openly provided shelter for Chinese fugitives and obstructed China's effort to chase down fugitives, turning the U.S. into a safe haven for the corrupt and for lawbreakers.
We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.